in Dallas, and one member of our crew does not like it. You'll hear it. And then, Houston, we have a problem. If you thought the Astros weren't sorry enough before, did you hear what they said last night? You will coming up. Time to get up with you, starting right now. Delighted to have a jam-packed crew ready to go this morning. Plenty of hoops today. And look who's back. Desmond Harris is here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you.
Be back.
Because we have significant changes potentially on the way to the National Football League, in particular in the area of their postseason. Let's get into it. Sources tell Adam Schefter that when the new CBA is finalized, which could be within the next week, the league is going to add a seventh playoff team to each conference. That would start as soon as this coming season. There would now be 6 total wildcard games instead of 4. Only the number 1 seed in each conference would get a bye. And the playoffs are not the only thing they're talking about changing. The league, as you probably know, is pushing hard for a 17th game in the regular season. That would reduce the preseason to 3. That would not take place until the 2021 season at soonest. The other major change would be the player revenue share increasing. It would just put more money into the players' side of things. And while it would only be a half a percentage point here or there, it could add up to an extra $5 billion towards the players. So I want to keep this in sort of the world where I think the fans are interested. Let's talk about 17 games and just where the conversations are right now. Dan Graziano.
The owners are meeting today. All 32 NFL owners scheduled to be at a meeting here, about a mile from here at the Conrad Hotel in downtown New York. They could vote on the proposal that's on the table. The proposal has been in front of the players for the last couple of weeks. Been some minor modifications as the sides have talked back and forth, but it's a proposal the owners like. The players are scheduled to have a conference call tomorrow with all 32 of their team representatives. And if they vote on that, the owners need to have a 3/4 of their body approve it. The players need 2/3 of their player reps to approve it for it to move forward. And that's where we get the report that the CBA could be agreed to within the next week or so, if all goes well. It would include a 17-game season option for the owners between 2021 and 2023. That would start. And, of course, the expanded playoffs that Adam referred to.
So that's going to be the enormous change. To change the number of games, I keep saying this. We say it somewhat cavalierly. To change the number of games that a team plays in a sport, it only happens like once every half century. So this would be a substantial change to professional football as we know it. As a longtime former player, Marcus, do you like 17 games?
No, I don't. And look, my mind will never change. I think 16 games is a lot already. And then you talk about teams possibly going to the playoffs, right, especially ones without the bye. Look, one extra game. And I know in general, people say, well, it's one extra game. It's 3 more hours on a Sunday. Not after you've taken 900 hits throughout the course of an entire season. That is the focus of the players. And obviously, you talk about player safety. But and then also, G, there are some parameters. I remember us sitting in the meeting, I said, G, well, if they give us 17 games, then they need to take some practices away, or they need to take some training camp away. Right. You was like, you are crazy. Yeah. Like, this is a game. And to that point, as I've come around, the physicality of a game is about 2 games, right, to be honest with you. So to add another one, man, it's just, I don't know if I can come around on it.
I agree with you. I haven't played, since 2003. But, you look at the intensity of a game. You don't want to add another game, especially when you're considering the health and risk factors of players. People are talking about concussions. You're talking about CTE. The last thing you want to do is put these players in another situation where they're playing another game. Not practice, not scrimmage, not preseason, but an actual game that counts.
There are a lot of things to this also, Dan, that I think have to be taken into consideration. Player safety is, of course, overwhelmingly the most important, and that's what the players are going to focus on, and rightfully so. It's not the only consideration to be here. First off, if you're going to make an odd number of games in a season, it feels to me like you're setting it up for each team to play 1 international game every year. I know that hasn't been worked out entirely yet. That makes some sense to me. But adding 1 more does not necessarily... More is not always better, and I would be concerned. I think there's something about how concise an NFL season is that is a part of its charm and allure.
There is, but what people have to understand is the 17th game and the added playoff games. This is all about the league trying to increase inventory. It's after this deal is done, they're going to turn around and negotiate with their TV network partners, with CBS, with Fox, with us, and they're going to say, hey, we have more games to offer, so you should give us more money, and that's what this is all about. You're right, they haven't even talked about how a 17-game season would work yet. They just want to know that they can offer it.
Exactly. They want to know they have the option to do it if they choose to do it, because they need the players to be partners with them in doing that. I understand it. And look, there is nothing. I don't think it's overstating it to say there is nothing right now more valuable in media than the television rights to professional football. They've never been more popular or more valuable based on the changes in the way the world works. So I understand all of that.
And to that point, that's why me and Dan were talking. I asked them, I said, can they not negotiate the same deal with TV networks without 17 games? And obviously, their response was, well, you probably could because of the popularity of the game.
Absolutely.
But if you give them 17, that might be $1 billion more.
It just is.
It just is.
It just is. If I have 16 of something that you desperately want, and then I say, well, I'll give you one more, you're going to pay more for it. It's just the way this stuff works. Now, the other big change here would be an added playoff game, one in each conference, as a matter of fact. Under the current playoff format, there have been 10 teams that won at least 10 games and missed the playoffs. If they were to have the format they're talking about now, 9 of those 10 would have made the playoffs. By the other side, 9 teams that finished 7th in a conference under the current playoff format had 8 wins. Though all would have made the playoffs under the new format. And each of the last 2 Super Bowl champions were 2 seeds. Think about the Chiefs this past year, the Patriots the year before that. How important is a first-round bye? No team has reached the Super Bowl without a bye since the 2012 Ravens. So it means that Kansas City this past year would have played 1 additional game. New England a year before that would have played 1 additional game. Does it mean they wouldn't have made the Super Bowl? Obviously, we don't know, but the path becomes a lot more difficult. So, same question. Do you like the idea of adding another playoff game, another playoff team in each conference?
I like the idea of that because you think about the time of the year and it's. What was the first question I asked? Is it another game on top of that? But no, with the bye week, you'll see teams incentivized, especially to get that number 1 seed. Instead of having the opportunity to sit players down and try to figure out, who can we rest up until this point. It's only one of those spots, and it is a clear advantage to be number 1 and not the second place team to play the 7th ranked team that you have going out of your conference.
Correct. To be clear, this is what the first round of the playoffs would have looked like this past season had this new policy been in place, this new plan. The Rams would have made it in the NFC, and the Steelers would have made it
trying to get
in the
my
AFC.
Guys, the most exciting time of the year, NFL playoff time. There's nothing like it. You're going to tell me that they're going to add another team and not another game? I think that's brilliant. I mean, why do you think college fought to have a playoff so hard? Because college football, playoff football is amazing. It's going to be more intriguing. And like you said, Swagoo, now these games, especially later in the season, they're going to be even more important.
What's interesting to me is this expanded playoffs is one issue where throughout this whole CBA thing, owners and players have seemed to find some agreement. Like when owners first came with the idea of 18-game season, the pushback was, no, that's way too much. Why don't we just expand the playoffs? Players won't mind playing another playoff game because that's like a reward, right? That you want to play.
There is also extra money in that for what it's worth.
I like the fact that the bye week, the team with the bye gets paid. That's huge.
That's one thing they would add.
You talk about incentive.
The players it's stuck in their craw, and understandably so, that if they earned a bye during the regular season, they didn't get paid the extra check for the game they didn't play in the playoffs.
That's big.
My only concern with this would be, anyone who knows me and listened to me for years knows the sanctity of the regular season is very important. I don't want a bunch of 8-8 teams in the playoffs. I don't think that's making it better. I don't want to see that, because the next step from here is, well, why would only one team get a bye? Now let's put 8 teams in from each conference, and now you're basically putting half your sport into the playoffs. That, to me, is a concern.
That is a concern. The NBA has that with sub-500 teams in the playoffs, right? And people still watch that, so that's the point in opposition to that. But neither one of those teams, Rams or Steelers, was 8-8, right? They were both 9-7.
Correct.
So it would happen sometimes, but it wouldn't be automatic.
All right, so those are some of the machinations with the CBA.
Man,
and
I
again,
feel like I'm tired.
Dude, we're just getting started.
If you think you're tired now,
mental gymnastics
I'm
there.
going to wake you up. Did you hear what your buddy Emmett Smith said? As the offseason continues to roll along, there is still no long-term contract for Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott yet. And while that remains the number 1 offseason priority in Dallas, former Cowboy and Hall of Famer Emmett Smith had this thought on Dak's contract.
Dak has to understand and maybe take another perspective. The perspective may not be all the money that you get. It may be how much of the money you're willing to leave on the table, because the Cowboys is a marketable organization. So if you are the face of the franchise, would it not instead of taking 35, would you take 28 and leave some for Amari and pick up the other 35 through endorsements?
All right, Swagoo. So you said you were tired. Did that wake you up a little bit?
Zone is Emmett's nickname for end zone.
Okay.
Zone, what the hell are you talking about? You held out. Hey, listen, for all intents and purposes, I've been hearing this narrative of take less money, and it is killing me because I know how hard it is, first of all, to get to the point where you can get some type of dictation of what type of money you want to make. Does people not realize that if Dak signs a 5 to 7 year deal, and for all of you experts, I'll say that, out there telling this man to leave $2 million per year on his contract off, do you know that adds up to $10 to $14 million? Or is anybody thinking about that narrative? Because most quarterbacks play out their contracts, number one.
Right.
And the second thing is this. Dak Prescott has already played at a discount. He's already played years for the Cowboys to be able to sign other guys long term at a high level at the quarterback spot. That's just what happens. Now it's Dak's turn. Dak is asking for a certain amount of money.
Right.
Give the man his money.
Swagoo, I think that Zone is looking at Dak Prescott as a guy who's not a max guy. I think that's how he's looking at him. And he wants Dak Prescott to make some of the changes to his contract, like sometimes we see a guy like Tom Brady makes, to be able to bring in some talent, because he needs talent around him, Dak does, for them and for him to reach his potential. If they're going to be a team that's going to try to get to the Super Bowl, he needs talent around him. So I think that's the angle that Zone was trying to take when he brought that argument to the table.
Can I tell you, Marcus, and you know that you might honestly be my favorite person currently walking the face of planet Earth. Wow. But you're wrong about this, and I'm going to tell you why you're wrong about this. Because, and I'm going to tell you something the great John Bon Jovi once said to me. Ooh. He said to me, Greeny, it's not about selling 10 million records in a year. It's about selling 5 million records every year, 10 straight years. If you are a successful quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, you will be set up for life. You'll be a made man for life. Dak Prescott will be making money 30 years from now if he becomes a great quarterback and Dallas wins Super Bowls while he's there. This is an investment in his future. The $10 million you're talking about him leaving on the table will pale in comparison to the amount of money that he will make. And I would say the same of Patrick Mahomes. The quarterbacks are in rare circumstances and unique situations. These are investments in their long-term prospects because Dak Prescott will make hundreds of millions of dollars in his life if he wins the Super Bowl as the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
But it's a double standard. Emmitt Smith is not sitting there saying to Jerry Jones, hey, you shouldn't take every last penny you can get on this labor deal. Right. Because if you keep the NFL the way it is, you're going to make a lot of money down the road. And if you don't, you risk messing it up. That would be the equivalent of what he's saying to Dak Prescott. So why are the players in a position where they have to take less?
Because there is a hard salary cap, Dan.
There's not a hard salary cap.
You're covering that.
It's a soft salary cap.
It's not a soft salary cap.
You can manipulate the salary cap.
Got to figure it out.
We just spent yesterday talking about how if the Chiefs give all this money to Patrick Mahomes, they're not going to be able to keep Sammy Watkins. They're not going to be able to keep Chris Jones. Right. You know what that means? That means the great quarterbacks don't wind up in Super Bowls.
They do wind up in Super Bowls. Jimmy Garoppolo was a $27, $28 million a year quarterback. Was the highest paid guy when he signed. He was in this last Super Bowl.
I have to leave this for the moment.
Yeah, let's leave it. God, dog it.
We'll come back to it. If there's one thing I think that we all can agree upon, it's that I'm right. Okay. Now let's get to the baseball because this is insane. Strong reaction continues to pour in across the sport to the Astros cheating scandal. And the Astros players themselves seem to have had enough. Rather than being more apologetic, they're now going in the absolute opposite direction. Here's outfielder Josh Reddick in the Washington Post. At some point, you have to move on and not give a bleep. We're going to go out there and win and shut everybody up. Here's Lance McCullers, a pitcher, saying the teams chalking trash are going to have to play us except for the guys who are popping off the most. And that is a reference clearly to the Dodgers, who've been very outspoken and who do not play the Astros this year during the regular season. So let's bring in Jeff Passan. He is at the Astros camp. Jeff, Josh Reddick and Lance McCullers, these strong comments yesterday in response to all this criticism. How did you take what they said?
I love it. I do. And listen, I understand everybody wants them to be contrite and everyone wants them to be silent. And frankly, that would probably be what's best for them. But guys can get pushed only so much before they start pushing back themselves. And I don't know if this is the first step down the path to going full heel, to like ripping off your shirt and putting on an NWO shirt and standing there with Kevin Nash and Hulk Hogan and Scott Hall like the wrestling heels that they could be. But if it is, man, already the Astros are the villains around baseball. Reasons, because there is another shoe to drop, and it's the Boston Red Sox. And I think what this is going to offer us is an ability to differentiate between the types of cheating there are. I know that sounds a little weird, right? Cheating is cheating, but what the mostly that is because in 2017 they were caught using an Apple Watch to relay signals to their bench. So it's going to be interesting ultimately to see just how big the penalty is.
Further to report. We'll check back with you again later this morning. Jeff Passan, thank you very much. Meanwhile, college basketball last night. What the heck happened here? Coach K and Duke visiting NC State. NC State has beaten Duke 2 of the last 3 years, and this one for Coach K was a nightmare. Here we are. We're midway through the first half. NC State's already up 9. We got a broken play. We got DJ Funderburk. He scored 21 on the night. NC State leads by 11. Jay Will, here comes more. NC State just running up and down the floor on them all night.
Yeah, you're not seeing any blue jerseys for Duke getting back. Prime example, Coach K shaking his head. I've been there, done that before.
That was Devin Daniels. He had 25. This one here is Markel Johnson beating the buzzer at halftime. He would score 28. Duke down 15 at the half. And then under 4 minutes to play, it's a 22-point game. NC State in a blowout. First time a ranked Duke team has lost to an unranked team by more than 20 under Coach K.
They're just playing hungrier and better than we are. You know, this isn't an Xbox game. This is a human being game. This game is about human nature and human beings. And sometimes when you eat too much, you're not as hungry. When you need something, you're really hungry. And when those two meet, a lot of times the team that needs it the most kicks the other team's butt, and that's what happened tonight. I don't know. I'll play Xbox later and see if we can do that.
So an interesting tack that Coach K takes there, sort of lightening the mood after his team gets blown out. Timmy Legs and Jay Will, the Dookie. What do you make of this here?
Well, he lightened the mood for the media, not for the players.
No.
Trust me, I've been on the other side of that coin, and I think that one play that we showed where there was only one player running back in transition defense, Trey Jones, I think that's the kind of line he's going to draw in the sand with this team Legs. Yeah. For the fact that, look, they are considered to be one of the best teams in the nation, but this is still a respectively young basketball team, and they don't play with that hunger. They don't know what it's like to have a target on their back each and every night, and he's going to use this as a learning opportunity for them.
To me, this is a perfect example of, Duke is always going to get everybody's best energy. Every single arena they go into, they're getting that team's best energy, best effort, the best out of the crowd, the best of everything. And in a year in which you have a team like Duke that can be inconsistent, this is ripe to happen. And this speaks to me, Jay, more than anything, this is how good this conference is. Like, this is the ACC. You go on the road in that conference, and you have a team that is that ready for you and up on their toes, you could run into this kind of thing on any given night. And ultimately, maybe this is something that really pays off for Duke down the road. This is something that's cold water in your face if you're that team.
I've been following college basketball for a living for 30 years, and as a fan my entire life, I've never seen a year this wide open where anything
it's
could
extremely
happen.
wide open. Extremely. I mean, and this is an NC State team that's on the bubble. I mean, we don't know if they're in the tournament yet, so that's
Right.
a huge win for them. And Markel Johnson can score with the best of them. So this is where we are in college basketball.
Duke is 6th in the country. They lost by 22 points last night to an unranked NC State. We are just getting started here on Get Up. Still to come as the Patriots try to entice Tom Brady to stay. One star receiver on another team is sending signals he wants out. We'll tell you who it is and whether or not New England could be his next stop. And then a Philly surprise. One of our guys has a bold prediction on the Sixers that could shake up the process forever.
Is that a good surprise or bad surprise?
You're going to find out next.